Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, it's great to have you here. We hope you like what you hear. So, our podcast is for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. Cover a wide range of topics, but we tend to focus on being left brain, making fact based decisions, controlling our emotions, practicing the principles of stoicism, trying to make the world a better place through our interactions with other people, and showing leadership. So, with all of that said, our episode today is around how to filter negative feedback. And it's interesting because we were originally going to title this episode, Don't Listen to Your Critics. But when we got to thinking about it, I don't know that that's the best advice in the world because it can create a situation where you ignore solid advice or you ignore valid criticisms that you really should consider, but you don't want to get caught endlessly analyzing criticisms. And so that's what we're going to try to do today is talk through how do you filter negative feedback when you get it to get to the truth, the kernels of truth in criticism that you probably need to deal with and think about and compartmentalize and push away the noise. So that's kind of what we're talking through today. So it's important to consider criticism, but you shouldn't always fully listen to your critics. And there's a variety of reasons for that. We're going to go through those. And the whole point to this really is to try to put together some type of a structure or a filter to run feedback through so that you can extract the useful parts of the feedback and ignore the non useful parts of the feedback. So, people have biased opinions and nobody's immune to that. I'm not immune to it. Nobody's immune to it. We all have our biases. And sometimes those biases can impact how you see a specific topic, how you see a specific situation, so that you're not able to see the forest for the trees. So, like me personally, I'm big proponent of personal freedom. And I think in most situations, we should leave people alone to do what they want. Well, that sounds good until someone starts a business and they're dumping their chemical waste into the river. And then somebody's got to step in and say, hey, this isn't good for the rest of us. It's got to stop. So that's an issue where I feel strongly about personal freedom. And my bias is towards more personal freedom than less. But I have to check my biases because there are absolutely instances where we as a collective society need to step in and say, that's not acceptable because you're harming the rest of us or you're harming the environment or whatever the case may be. So that can be around all sorts of different things. Maybe you had a bad experience with a store. And so you think that store sucks because you had one bad experience there. That could be legitimate, could not be legitimate. You may have been the outlier and just drawn the short straw that particular day. Or maybe that store actually sucks. Who knows? Whole point is people have biases based on the experiences that they have in their life. And you've got to consider that when you're considering the source of the feedback and the motivation of the feedback. Because their motives could be questionable. Maybe someone wants to get you to buy something, and so they criticize you and make you think, boy, I suck at this. And then they offer you a solution that you can purchase from them. That's criticism. Well, it may be true, and their solution may actually help you. You don't know. And so I think you got to look at a situation like that a little more carefully than you would another situation. If the criticism is overly negative, it might be personal. Maybe they just don't like you. And it's okay that they don't like you, but that doesn't mean you have to listen to their criticism or change your behaviors based on their criticism or their feedback. And not all of it's constructive. Sometimes people are just trying to tear you down and make themselves feel better. Most like aggressively negative criticism towards someone is coming from a place of self doubt of the person leveling the accusations or the criticism. Most of it is someone that doesn't feel good about themselves or has self esteem issues or those kinds of things. And they're directing it towards you because they're afraid to direct it towards themselves and solve their own problems or look at their own issues. Not always. And again, it's important not to ignore negative feedback because some of it's valid and can help you improve. And that's where your job as the person in charge of your life becomes filter it so that you can get to the truth. Hey, you know what? I do react angrily a lot of the time, or I do tend to not communicate when things are hard, or I do tend to lash out at other people when I'm upset about something, whatever the case may be. Those could be valid criticisms, and you want to consider those so that you can improve yourself, improve your relationships, and make the people around you better by improving how you interact with them. And focusing on all the negative stuff can really hinder your progress and can cause self doubt for you as well. So, all of those are things that you got to consider. All of those are things you have to think through. And what you really want to do is filter it. Don't ignore it, but filter it and, get it, run it through a series of checkpoints and say, does this person have good intentions? Yes or no? If it's yes, move it to the next checkpoint. Is their criticism valid? Is there facts behind their criticism, or is this a personal attack? If it's valid, move it to the next checkpoint. If it's not, kick it out. So that's kind of what we're talking through today. So, with all that said, here's some key points to consider. So, negative bias. People tend to focus much more on negative feedback than positive. So, criticism can disproportionately impact your thought process and your self esteem. You got to pull yourself up out of that loop when it happens and objectively consider the criticism that's been leveled towards you. So we talked about it before. We work retail a lot. We still in retail stores, interact with the public a lot. In fact, I recently got a text from a concerned customer who said, "Hey, the trash behind your store tends to pile up and it's problematic." And they sent me pictures. So it would be easy to say, they know what they're talking about. It's hard to run a grocery store. It's valid. They've got valid pictures that show the dumpsters overflowing and garbage sitting next to the dumpsters. And we have to deal with that. And so we're in the process of dealing with that. But that's negative feedback that I got that I filtered and said, yeah, this is real. We need to deal with that negative feedback. So very important. Next, consider the source. Who is the source? Is it a reliable person or is it an unreliable person? And you've got to be careful on this one because more than one thing can be true at the same time. So a very unreliable source could, in fact, still have valid points or criticisms. And simply because they're an unreliable source does not mean you should dismiss it out of hand without investigating the essence behind the criticism or the point of the criticism. Even if it's an unreliable source, you should still consider it and say, you know what? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Or, hey, I know this person's kind of off their rocker, but they might be right on this one, right? So the Unabomber was right about a lot of things around technology. He was wrong for mailing bombs and killing people. But he was right about a lot of what he said about technology and the impact it would have on society. So I would consider him a very unreliable source who was a very intelligent guy who was murdering people, but it doesn't mean he was wrong about some of the things that he said. So that's an example of a very unreliable source who was still right about some specific things. Next, personal agendas. Some critics may have a personal motivation to bring you down or to make you second guess what you're doing. Maybe it's a family member who doesn't want to see you succeed or doesn't want to see you move away. So they discourage you. That might be good, it might not be good, but they have a personal agenda that's impacting the advice or the criticisms that they're leveling at you. Maybe it's a competitor in your field and they don't want you to succeed. And so they're criticizing you to make you second guess what you're doing or to slow you down or to negatively impact your success. So you got to look out for personal agendas as well. That's a very real thing. And that's something that you want, as you filter it, something you want to consider in terms of where the source is coming from. A lack of constructive criticism. So this is an important one. If someone is just criticizing you and offers no solutions or no suggestions on how you can improve whatever it is they're criticizing about you, I think you have to be real leery about listening to that person. It's one of the things we do a lot and we talk about a lot is don't just come with a problem, come with a problem you've identified and some potential solutions. Even if they're not good solutions, say, hey, I've been thinking about this a lot and the best I could come up with was these one or two things, but I know it's wrong and I know we got to fix it and I'm asking for help. But don't just go throw up your problems on somebody's desk and expect them to solve your problems. It's a bad way to go. It's the same thing with criticism. If someone is just hurling insults at you and being just critical of you, you got to wonder how useful that criticism is and whether it's criticism you should consider or if you should just push it aside and keep pushing forward on the path that you're on. So those are things to consider. And then what can you do instead of getting caught up in this negative feedback loop or this negative thought process that can come with criticism. Evaluate the source, like we talked about before. Consider the critic's expertise and credibility before taking their feedback seriously. Now, this is there's a lot of conversation around vaccines right now, and so a lot of people say X, Y, and Z. I think we've got to be really fact based about how we approach vaccines. So there's lots of facts that support vaccines. We have gotten rid of measles. We've gotten rid of tetanus. We've gotten rid of lots of diseases through vaccines, and that's great. Again, more than one thing can be true at the same time. Those vaccines could be very effective in dealing with those issues, and they also could have side effects that we don't know about because we have to test those things and study those things long term. So I'm not arguing for or against any particular point on this. My point is we should consider all of the evidence and make solid, fact based decisions on how we move forward with those things. Maybe the formulation in those vaccines needs to be tweaked. Maybe they're perfect right now and nothing needs to be done. I don't know. But I don't think most people know, but most people are quick to jump in with an opinion on that. And I don't think any of us know the real data behind what's going on. So I find someone like RFK Jr. interesting because he's asking questions. I don't say he has all the answers. I don't say he should just go do whatever he wants. I don't say he should have unchecked power. None of those things. But I think he's asking good questions. And I think those questions merit serious response. And so there's nothing wrong with asking those questions and getting to the bottom of topics like that. So evaluate the source. Not for nothing, but RFK Jr. is in fact an environmental attorney who built his practice on protecting the environment and protecting people. So he seems like a credible source to be asking these questions. Yes, he said some crazy shit. The worm, the worm in the brain. I picked up a dead bear and shoved it in Central Park. Some wacko stuff. Who doesn't have wacko stuff in their past? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't get answers to the questions that he's asking, because I think he's asking some good questions. So that's the way we think about it. Evaluate the source. Think about who it is that's leveling these criticisms against you, and filter it against that source to see if there's any value in considering what they're saying. Again, next tip is filter the criticism. Analyze the feedback to identify valid concerns while dismissing overly harsh or irrelevant comments. So you don't have to listen to everything someone says, but there may be 1, 2, 3 kernels of truth in what they're saying. And if you want to improve yourself as a person, that's an opportunity for you to take feedback from someone or from a different source and analyze that feedback and then put a plan together to remedy any issues that you find coming out of your analysis of that feedback. So by filtering it, you can get rid of the noise. If someone says 3 or 4 things and says, plus you're stupid. Okay, well, like I might be stupid, I might not be stupid, but I don't think that's a relevant criticism to the topic that we're talking about. I'm going to set that one off to the side and ignore it because I'm not real worried about that one. But you did say these 1 or 2 things that resonate with me, and I think I should look at those harder. Next, focus on constructive feedback. So seek out criticism that offers specific suggestions for improvement. I was talking to my wife about a particular person the other day, not a person I'm close to. I'm tangentially involved in the whole scenario that is going on. With that said, this is a person that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and they want to be more involved in the situation that they're trying to be involved in. And so I asked my wife, like, has anyone talked to this person and just said, hey, you rub a lot of people the wrong way because of these types of behaviors, and give specific concrete examples of the behaviors that are causing the friction. And she said, well, no, I don't think they have. I said, well, I don't think you're being real, whoever it is, I don't think they're being real fair to this person because they're not giving them a chance to respond to these types of criticisms and to change their behaviors in these types of situations. Some people literally don't get it. Some people literally don't know that they're rubbing you the wrong way or that their approach is abrasive. That's one of the advantages that we have is we're very, very self-aware. So I know I come across as aggressive. I know I come across as difficult sometimes. I know I come across as grating sometimes. And I fully acknowledge that. And I work on improving it when it's important to improve it. But it's also not a bad tool to have in your toolkit in specific situations. but I'm very self aware of those things. Some people are not self aware of those things. They have the opposite view of themselves that the world has of them. So, my mom used to say, if everybody else thinks you're a jerk, but you don't, you're a jerk because everybody else thinks that. That's your perception. That's how you're perceived. And so that's the reality of what you are to that particular group of people. And if you want to change that, you've got to change your behaviors around that group of people over a long period of time to demonstrate to them that you're not the same person that you were when they made their initial judgment. So by focusing on that constructive feedback, it allows you to identify those issues, behaviors, challenges that you're facing so that you can change how you interact with people and get a better result. And then finally, you got to trust your intuition. At the end of the day, it's up to you to make the decisions on how you live your life. And if you get negative feedback and you filter it and you get to a point where you say, you know what, there could be validity to this, but I think I'm doing the right thing here. You got to go with your gut. You got to do what you think is right. You got to do what you're comfortable with. You got to do what will allow you to put your head on your pillow at night and sleep soundly. And sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. I think it's important to go back and look at those types of decisions and think about, hey, did I get the desired outcome that I wanted? And did I get it in a way that is constructive? If you can answer yes to both of those questions, then I think you're in a really good spot. If you answer no to either of those questions, then I think you got to take a hard look at, okay, how did I wind up where I wound up? What led me down the path where I didn't get the outcome I wanted, or I did get the outcome that I wanted, but I burned a lot of personal or political capital to get the outcome that I wanted, more than I should have been willing to sacrifice for that particular issue or situation. Because at the end of the day, you own it. It's your life. They're your choices. You have to live with them. And that's the whole point, is that you have to live with them. So you have to be introspective and think, hey, am I doing things the way I want to do them? And if you are, that's great. You don't owe a response or an apology or an explanation to anybody, but you should think long and hard about how you're doing things and if you're comfortable with the way they're going. So that's the episode for today, guys. Hope you found all that stuff helpful. James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to go to our website, saltygingertalk.com. We've got all of our podcast episodes available there. We do a newsletter that we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to there. And we've also got links to all our social media accounts on there as well. Also, it'd be great if you could share your experiences around when you've received negative feedback. What have you done about it? How have you thought about it? What is your approach to filtering that and working on the things that you want to work on to improve your life? If you can leave that in the comments, it's super helpful. It helps everybody that's watching and listening. We don't have all the answers. We're not perfect. We have a long way to go, all of those things, but we're always trying to improve ourselves. And I think that's where we want to be just as people. We should be trying to get better every day. And that's what our podcast is really all about. Try to make yourself a little bit better every day. So thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Really appreciate you checking out the channel. Everybody have a great week, and we will see you next time.